Parenting is the hardest job, and there is not a close second. Raising high-performing teen athletes or performers? That's a high-stakes job. I'm Nate Crandall, joined by fellow certified high-performance coach Steve Galley. We coach ambitious parents like you, and also your high-performing teens, because when you both level up, connection and results don't just improve, they multiply. Welcome to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast. We have some burning questions for you.
Are you making the same mistake every other parent is?
I would say yes.
Because every other parent's making it, right?
Wow, I want to know what this mistake is. Especially if everybody else is doing it. We're all on the same team.
Well, it's not just with our kids. Like, this is a super common mistake that we all make, but specifically in this context is when we react to something, it's easier for other people to look at that reaction and understand it, but we're completely unaware. It's a total blind spot for us of what our reactions are saying to other people and how we're even really reacting to situations. Here's a great example of this. If you go to any youth sports event, you're going to see this in the stands prolifically. The game, people are locked in on the game and they're emotionally invested in the game, and the ref will make a call and people are losing their minds. And if you're unattached to the situation, you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, what are these people doing? But if you're in the situation, you have no conceptualization of what that reaction even looks like. Right?
I have seen this many times.
Yeah. Every time if you go anywhere near a youth sporting event or even a performance of some variety, like, we just don't know that we're reacting that strongly and that bigly. Bigly? Is that a word?
You said
it
bigly.
Is now. I said bigly.
Yeah.
Nice.
I like it. So we're talking blind spots, and we're going to be talking this particular blind spot about reaction. And I would say, Nate, if for any of our listeners out there, by the way, thanks for listening to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Like, follow, subscribe.
If there's any parent out there that isn't making this mistake, we want to, and I don't mean this facetiously, we seriously want to book you on the show. We want you as a guest, seriously, because I want to hear about their methods, their perspective, and how they have learned to beat this.
What?
Because when you say every parent is doing it, I know there's some out there that they've overcome this. And by the way, those of you that have overcome this, yeah, definitely, congratulations. So I'm going to review 3 questions that we did in the previous episode, 129, where we were talking blind spots. These were 3 questions that you challenged to ask the parents. They'll be good reminders if you've already listened to that episode. If you're a new listener or just stumbled upon episode 130, these will be great questions for you. So the first one was, what is the motivation for your correction or conversation with your teen? What's behind the curtain? And if you examine that, I think the conversation or correction, it has a much better chance of landing well. The second one was, what message is your correction or commentary sending to your athlete or performer? So try to put yourself in their shoes before you start your message. And then the third one was, what's the story you tell yourself when they underperform? Because that is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are raising the next Tom Brady, even if you have a superstar out there, there's going to be times where they, quote, unquote, underperform.
Yep. Yeah, those are great questions. They can drive some really, really good thinking that might help you understand some of the blind spots that might be getting in the way of you connecting better, helping your teens feel safe, being imperfect around you.
Well, Nate, I love to get to the practical. So let's talk about some common examples where we see this happening with high high achieving, go getting, incredibly awesome, most valuable parents of teen athletes and performers. So let's hit on the idea that they're reacting to the moment. And should I just do a hard one?
Yeah.
Let's say your teen plays a lot and then all of a sudden sits the entire second half or a whole quarter, something that has not happened before. It feels a little unusual. You're smiling. I don't know why you're smiling. He's on the bench. She's on the bench. Anyway, the parents' reaction, and see, I'm getting fired up right now. I'm like, why is he on the bench? Why? He sat the entire second half. Like, what's going on? So, yeah, you run with it. I know you have some thoughts on this.
Our emotional attachment to people and situations drives the show. Like, it's, if we pause and look at this from a big perspective, fly the plane up to 40,000 feet and take a look at it.
I thought it was 35,000 feet.
I'm taking it all the way up to 40 because you see even more from 40,000 feet. The kid sits the entire second half. I get furious about it. Why? And often that's a blind. We don't know how big we're reacting, and then we don't know why we're reacting the way that we do. And so this is an opportunity. If a parent feels this, and it's okay to feel it. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel like this, but if you sense and feel that your anger is rising because your kid's on the bench, that's an opportunity to pause and say, what's this really about? Because if I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, if he's not playing, how's he going to get recruited? How's he going to get an NIL deal or a scholarship or something like that? And my brain's just going to run with that story, and my emotions are going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to turn into a blow up. And when our emotions are driving the show, our thinking brains don't function as well. So it's that, and that's why I'm smiling at this, is it's a super common thing. I've felt that watching my kid play sports. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, why are they not playing? Is this coach trying to lose? And on and on. And there's just a million things that come up, but it's all coming from a place of...
time out. I just wanted to interject that 99% of all coaches are trying to lose. Just wanted to make that somewhat sarcastic.
Make sure that is abundantly clear.
Yes.
Now coaches, we know that's not true. Coaches, we know that's not true. But when our emotions are raging, and it's so simple to get to that point, we flip our emotional lids and then we start reacting instead of responding to situations. We react to the moment. And it's in those moments when we usually do the most damage to our relationship. Because if my kid sees me reacting like that, if my kid sees me furious and panicked, kids are really good at this. They find a way to internalize it. They'll make it about themselves because that's the point of view that they come from. Everything's, about them, the whole invisible audience. And anyway, they will think that they've let me down or that they're doing something wrong and that they're messing this up somehow and that they're letting me down. And yeah. So I smile at that because that's a super common one. And it leads to what we're talking about with that blind spot of we don't know how big our emotional reactions are and what they're really communicating.
Yeah. Okay, another example, kind of in the same ballpark. This will happen in sports where there's lots of substitutions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is your teen makes a mistake and they also come out of the game. And the story often is they made a mistake, and so they're getting pulled, which may actually be true. It may actually be not true. But there's this powerful reaction in the moment. And if you want to go back to episode 129, where we talked about Coach Jim Moran, he was telling reporters, you think you know, but you don't know. This is honestly one of those situations where you may not really know what's behind the substitution and if there is a connection to the mistake.
And that leads to some interesting problems because we love to answer the question why. So when our kid gets pulled, we're going to immediately try to explain why we think they got pulled out of the game.
Yeah.
And we may see a mistake that they made, and it's not why the coach pulled them out, but we see the mistake. And so we run to this place of, well, they're falling behind, or they're not that good, or they're not that clutch. And that's a hard place to get to as a parent. And that leads to a whole set of an emotional reaction. And so we answer it. For parents, that's a great place to pause as you're trying to, if you catch yourself trying to fill in the answer to that question, why did they get pulled out of the game? Understand your brain's going to create an answer to that. You're going to find an explanation, and it's probably going to be wrong. But if you roll with the wrong information, now you're not making progress. All progress starts with the truth. And if you're rolling with something that's not the truth, that doesn't lead to progress. So you have to be very, very aware of just hitting the pause button. You might not get an answer to it now. You might not get an answer to it ever, why they got pulled out. But if we make too big of a deal out of it in that moment, then it can spiral into even more problems.
Right. I would even say, and I might get pushback from parents on this, that it's not really necessary that you know.
No, it's not. That's life. So much angst and stress is causing our life because we desperately try to find a why for everything that happens.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Nate, I think sometimes if people are trying to find the why and they don't have the why, they will go down some dangerous roads where they start making comparisons to other players.
Yes.
And they'll start saying, well, why did Nate threw the ball to the other team and didn't get subbed out? My son threw the ball to the other team and he got subbed out.
But it's not about that.
And maybe he got subbed out because it was just time for, they're using some type of rotation. Maybe it's because the coach wants an assistant coach to talk to them. Maybe there's, you know how it is. There's so many reasons why.
Yep.
Okay. And you don't have to know. You don't have to know every time.
And that's a huge blind spot.
Okay. Another one. You see coach praising another kid, and maybe this kid plays the same position or fulfills the same role. And so the parent mood all of a sudden tanks, and you're not anti-complimenting the other player. You're a nice person. You're a good person. You think that's awesome. But you start telling yourself the story that, oh, my kid's being replaced.
Yep.
And you love your kid so much that you don't want to see them replaced. And so once again, a reaction in a moment over one thing can be a huge, huge problem. And this is a blind spot if you're reacting all the time to these moments.
Yeah. Just taking a second to pause and look at that. And like you said, most people are good people. In fact, I would be willing to bet that almost everybody listening to this show would classify as a good person. And they're totally cool with complimenting other players and doing things like that. But sometimes situations put us in a weird place and we start reacting and rolling with something. We don't communicate the message we think we're communicating.
Absolutely.
From a place
Nate,
of big emotions.
You know, Nate, that one of my favorite things is to launch a preemptive strike. And
Yes.
I think one thing that parents can do is think about some of these situations. If they've happened before, great. If they've never happened before, ask yourself, how am I going to respond in these situations, these quick reactions that are often fueled by negative emotions and feelings?
Yeah.
You have a couple of questions, or maybe you have 3 questions that
I got 3.
That if parents ask these, this would be part of a preemptive strike that would help you to handle these situations better.
So the first one will hopefully help parents get a little bit introspective about the way that they react, because some parents will react in different emotional ways. Do you as a parent tend to get intense, or do you become more quiet, which can sometimes project disappointment? So do you get intense? Do you go external with it, or do you go internal with it? And then how does your teen perceive that response? If you get all quiet, what's that feel like, sound like, look like for your teen? If you get intense, what's their emotional perception of that? So one thing to think about there. Second one, what's your default? Coach voice, critic voice, or rescuer voice?
Yeah.
And is that voice what your athlete needs to hear the most? Is that the voice that needs to come out? So understanding, well, when I see something and I get emotional, I go to my critic voice, or I go to my coach voice, or I go to my rescuer voice. And then the last one, and I think this is the most important one for understanding this emotional reaction blind spot that we all deal with in our lives. What really matters most in this situation? Getting that perspective, flying the plane up to 40,000 feet or 35 if you want to go there. Get that plane up there and see what is it that really matters most in this situation.
I like it. That huge pause right there, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
That is our listeners doing some deep thinking.
We love it when you think.
We do.
We absolutely love it when you think. That's the whole reason we do this, because you care so much about your kids. You work so hard for them. And we just want you to think about how you can really communicate that to your children.
Hey, go get some more W's this week, parents.
Nate Crandall and Steve Gallen would like to thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're experiencing and learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, please like, comment, and or leave a glowing review of this episode and the show. And to further help Nate and Steve expand their reach and impact thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please share the show and subscribe to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast channel on YouTube. And if you want to explore further to see what Nate and Steve are creating to help parents of athletes and performers everywhere, please visit their website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you will find a growing number of tools and resources to help you elevate your parenting. Thanks again for tuning in. Now go create a magical relationship with your athlete or performer.